Hey there, it's Elizabeth from Living Vibrantly, and I wanted to make a video blog about our second round of IVF just because I think, or I know that sometimes to just hear the story told hits home a little more than reading it. But if you prefer to read it instead of watching the video, you can always find it on my blog at livingvibrantly.net. Click on the blog tab, and if you want to be notified whenever I have blog updates, there's a box to subscribe to my newsletter too. So having said that, let's get right into it. So this is on a playlist called our fertility journey. So you probably have, if you're here, you can see the other parts. So I'm not going to go over the whole history. You can find that on my channel, but I'm going to tell you about round 2, which was September 2016. And my husband and I, Sean and I, had decided, or not so much decided, has been forced to just freeze all of our embryos. So for people wondering, doesn't IVF mean that you might be pregnant now? Not necessarily. IVF refers to it's in vitro fertilization, so up to the point of creating the embryo, and then it starts to grow, and then either you transfer it back into your uterus or you freeze it, and you actually can save it for later for an indefinite period of time, which is pretty cool, although it's a little sad too. I mean, we don't want to leave our babies there that long, but we got 4 of them, and so now we can wait for my kidney function to improve. And again, I have another video that goes, and a blog post that goes over the whole history of why my kidneys aren't working that well, if you are curious. But so we got some really good news in July that my kidney function actually did improve. So I have blood work again in a couple weeks here, end of October, and really fingers crossed, hoping and praying that my kidneys will improve even more, and then I need to make an appointment with a specialist so that we can know a little bit more about, what really are the risks, because your blood volume doubles when you're pregnant. So what does that mean in terms of the strain on my kidneys? And because I've been on dialysis, and I never, ever want to do that again. I mean, obviously I would if I had to, but it's pretty miserable. So like to avoid it if I can. So, so those are some of the risks that we will be weighing. And then other than that, I want to put the outcome, the most important part, first, and tell you that we got 4 little embryos. So we got 2 from this round and 2 from the last round. And like I said, they're just waiting for us. And really there's no rush other than the fact that we are more than ready to be parents after waiting for so long. Oh my goodness. So now that you know the ending, maybe you just want to click stop. But sorry, I was just realizing I didn't put my microphone on, so hopefully the sound quality is okay. But I'm just going to keep going. So yeah, so I'll go back to the beginning for those who want to know kind of the nitty-gritty of it. And if you know someone going through IVF, or if you know someone who's thinking about it, I would love if you'd share this so they can hear about our experience. So overwhelming kind of, or overarching impressions, I feel like I just missed out on summer. Just totally don't know where it went. We had IVF rounds in July and September. And so starting mid-June, we had a lot of doctor's appointments, and then starting again mid-August. So there was some time off at the end of July to early August, but that like 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the evening doing the injections, then doctor appointments 2 or 3 times a week, and just kind of the mental headspace attention. And there were several, nights after work, that you're on the drugs for a 2-week period. And there were several nights after work when I would have to go to Costco pharmacy and get additional meds, or go to FedEx and get the meds that had been overnighted to me. So it just ends up taking a lot of your time. So I feel like I kind of missed out on summer. It was kind of a blur, and really hoping, it's kind of nice in a way. I mean, we wouldn't really have chosen this path, but in a way it's kind of nice that we get a little break now. So what comes next is that I need to have a couple of procedures to help my uterine lining be more hospitable for a baby, to reduce the chances of losing a pregnancy. So that, brings some risk with it in addition, based on the bleeding problems that I had from my surgery a couple of years ago. So it's not anything I'm looking forward to, and, we need some time to get that over with, and then I'm just kind of, we'll see when we decide to do a transfer, but it would be nice to just kind of like relax and enjoy summer a little bit is what I'm thinking now. And then, I don't know, maybe a year from now, do the transfer and start working on actually getting pregnant. But we will see. That's a big decision, and we just got to take it one step at a time. So with this round of IVF, which I said, we started in mid-August, and they put me on a different drug regimen. Sorry, I'm just reading through my blog post so I don't forget anything to tell you guys. So they put me on a different drug regimen than I was on last time. And the reason for that was because I'm only 37 and we only got 3 eggs last time, and only 2 of them were mature. So it was kind of like, they were wondering why we didn't have better results. So they decided to try different drugs. So this time I was on Menopur, which is, so everyone who does IVF is on massive doses of FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, and that's what causes your ovaries to pump out more and more eggs than, you normally would have just 1 a month. So, Menopur, in addition to, so FSH is either F or Follistim, and they're, different brand names for the exact same drug, synthetic FSH. So then Menopur acts on the FSH receptors in your body, so the FSH that you're injecting is more effective when you're using Menopur at the same time. So that, by the way, that drug is derived from the urine of women who are going through menopause. Isn't that crazy? So I really wonder about the story of like, who are these women who are, the donors for this drug to be created? But, kind of wish I hadn't read that tidbit, but it's also kind of cool. So I did 150 units of Menopur, 3 units of Gonal F every day, and took those for a total of 13 days. And then last time I had been using Lupron, which shuts down estrogen and everything, and it made me feel pretty lousy, anxiety. And this time I used Cetrotide instead, and it was better. There usually was about like around, 11 a.m. I would really, really feel it kick in, where like I just almost felt, it was like my body was down regulating. I don't know. That probably doesn't make any sense to you, but I just felt like my energy and my attention and my patience and like everything was just shutting down. And it was really intense about just right at 11 a.m. Like it would kind of get more and more intense leading up to it. And then it was really bad for a little while. And I also had to make sure I wasn't hungry at that time, had a snack handy. And then it would just gradually wear off. But it really wasn't too bad. So Cetrotide keeps you from ovulating. And ovulating would be bad because you've got multiple eggs and they need to get them out of your body at the time of the egg retrieval. So you can't have them going into your uterus. They need to stay in the ovary. And like I said, I did it for 13 days, which is really the maximum that they do, that I've heard of at least. Some people have their egg retrieval after like 5 days or something because the drugs are so effective that their ovaries just go into overdrive. So that definitely was not the case with me. We only had, I can't even remember now. I think it was 6 eggs this time. So it's not like the drugs are working really, really well for me. Even with this regimen, they still didn't work that well. So what that tells us is my ovaries are kind of just pooped out a little bit. You know, at least we're still getting some good quality eggs in a few of them. And I mean, it certainly could be a lot worse, but you know, for as expensive as this process is, we really weren't getting a lot out of it, especially at the maximum dose of drug. And these drugs are expensive too. So this time, you know, we still had monitoring visits a couple times a week, but I remember, you know, those visits last time, the first round, were really emotional for me because it was so cool seeing the eggs on the ultrasound and just knowing that those were our, you know, potential children. And then the first time around, the doctor discovered during the egg retrieval that those, the majority of what she was seeing were actually endometriosis growths. So they were not actually eggs. So that was kind of heartbreaking. And so this time around for the ultrasounds, I really just didn't pay any attention because, you know, the doctor could see she was looking, I guess, a little more carefully after, you know, learning what she did. So she saw what she thought were eggs this time and was telling me, but at the same time, I just didn't want to get too attached. So really almost didn't pay any attention at all to what she was telling me and just decided to wait and see when the egg retrieval came around. So this round went a lot faster, I think. We just were used to the shots, kind of used to everything, but, you know, like I said, it's still really time consuming. And the thing about this time is the drugs we used, a couple of them they come in a powder form. So it's like a vial of powder and a vial of liquid. So then you have to draw the liquid back into your needle, inject the liquid into the powder dissolves when you swirl it, and then draw the powder back out into your syringe. So that actually was kind of, you know, a process, and it seems like there's a lot of potential for error. So we did have it go wrong once. And so it's just one morning, my husband was mixing our Cetrotide by our bedroom window, and I heard him say, "Oh, fuck." And that's not what you want to hear come out of your husband's mouth when he's mixing an expensive drug and you're already running late for work. So somehow, you know, it wasn't his fault at all. When you're, you know, the instructions show when you're drawing the drug and, you know, immersed in liquid, drawing it back into your syringe, that, you know, you have to turn the vial upside down and then draw it out because that's how the air bubble rises to the top and you get the air bubble out of it. So, you know, normally there's like just almost a vacuum seal around the, you know, sides of the needle so that that liquid can't escape through the lid. When you turn the vial upside down, it just stays in there until you draw it out into the syringe. But for whatever reason, the liquid started leaking out around the sides of the needle through that hole in the lid of the vial, and he lost about 20% of the dose. So we called the doctor's office to ask them if we should still use it, and we couldn't reach them right away, and I had to get to work, so we just refrigerated what we had left, but we went ahead and we opened another box so I would get the full dose, because like I said, it would be kind of a disaster if I ended up ovulating. So when the doctor did call, she said that she really would prefer for me to have the full dose, so we really shouldn't use what we still had in the fridge. So that meant that I had to go to Costco after work, because my husband works into the evenings, so this was all me at this point. And that one was like $250 for one dose, so I was kind of annoyed just at us, you know, wasting that dose, even though it was a complete accident and it wasn't anybody's fault, and I don't think he could have done anything differently. It just was something that happened. But then the next day, our doctor made a decision at my monitoring appointment to push us out one more day from what we originally had planned for the egg retrieval. So most of our meds we ordered from an online pharmacy called Mandela's in New Jersey, and they're awesome. Their customer service is so good. They're just comforting and nice and helpful and really reliable, and a lot of the drug companies have manufacturer discounts and rebates, and Mandela's Mandell. Look them up, mandelsclinicalpharmacy.com. They are awesome. What they do is they, and they're not paying me. I just had a really good experience with them. They submit all of your refunds and or all of your rebates, and they apply all applicable discounts. You don't even have to ask. You don't have to do anything. So we love them, and we got most of our meds from them. But then when we needed the extra, there wasn't even enough time to have the drugs overnighted. So I had to go to Costco and get one more day of Gonal F, and it was $1,500 for the dose that I needed. So it just really, hurt us in the pocketbook. And fortunately, I have my coaching business that, in addition to both of us working full time, we had that little bit of extra where we were able to cover it without too much trouble. And I'm always grateful for that. But it still really hurts to know all the other things you could be spending that money on. And of course it's worth it if we end up with a child. But then to not know and kind of to have the doctor on the fence a little bit of, should we do one more day? Should we not? Not knowing which way would be the best for our results. And we still don't know if we would have had more eggs, the previous day. But then, you just kind of second guess everything. And it seems like it's such an imprecise science in a lot of ways. And every step and every potential mistake is so expensive. But at that point, you just do what you have to do. And so that's what we did. And we also needed another day of it was ganirelix, which is the same as the cetrotide equivalent. So we spent $1,500 that day, $1,300 for Gonal F and $200 for the ganirelix. So fun times. But so the reason it was so much, it was, it only would have been $300 a day through Mandels, but they couldn't get it to us in time. So just watch out. If you're doing IVF, you just have to be prepared for anything. And of course, there are still no guarantees that it will work out. And that's what makes me, just sad and apprehensive about it. I mean, I still feel really hopeful, but we have to be open to the possibility that we'll go through, 2 to 4 embryo transfers. It also costs a lot of money, also are not covered by insurance, and that we'll just lose the babies. So, but, you don't know unless you try, and the only way to get the result you want is to try and to go through it. So after our expensive day at Costco, it was time for the trigger shot. And I also do a special pre-surgery diet. There are a lot of foods that are natural anticoagulants. You can find that on my blog, or just email me too if you have trouble finding it. But I had abnormal bleeding when I had surgery 2 years ago. And so I have to be on a special diet just to make sure or reduce the chances of that ever happening again. So I was just ready to get this over with, because the foods that I can eat were pretty limited, like no garlic, no ginger, no cinnamon, and, only low impact exercise, no inversions in my yoga practice, because you can get ovarian torsion where your ovaries are enlarged because of the drugs and they twist, and your, fallopian tube can get twisted and cut off blood supply to your ovary, which sounds very pleasant, right? It's actually a surgical emergency, so you don't want that to happen. So you have to be, there's a lot that has to change about your lifestyle leading up to this procedure, even more so for me because of my history with surgery. So I was ready to get it over with. And the trigger shot, speaking of everything being imprecise, that's the one thing that is precise. So I did that myself, and there was one other day I was able to do the shots myself. I know a lot of women do all the shots themselves. I was really lucky to have my husband willing to do it, because it's hard, It's like, I don't know what the biological term is for that response, but where like I was looking down at injecting the needle into my belly and I was shaking so hard I could barely squeeze the plunger. So fortunately, you know, most of the time I just do the ice pack and then I like hold up my magazine, lie down on the bed, and he just does it. And, you know, I could feel it a little bit, but I couldn't see it. Ice pack really, really helps with the pain. But anyway, I did the trigger shot myself, shaking and everything. And you do it in the evening, and then not the next day, but the day after that, you go in for your egg retrieval. So you have to do your trigger shot at a very precise time. If you're even 15 minutes off, they have to reschedule your procedure. Got it done. No mishaps with that. And it was a Saturday morning. I went in for the egg retrieval. They give me a drug that, you know, helps me not remember it, and some painkillers too, and I don't remember a thing. And just feeling a lot less nervous this time because I got through it once before with no pain and no memory and no complications and no real side effects afterwards. And I just knew what to expect. So as the first time, you know, as with our first round, the meds wore off in stages. So I'd be feeling great 1 minute and then I'd fall asleep for half an hour. So I knew to be prepared for that. That, you know, because last time I was like, yeah, I feel awesome. And we went out to the Indian buffet for lunch and I literally was sleeping at the table. So this time our retrieval was a couple hours earlier in the morning. I went home. I knew I had to take a nap. I was kind of on the computer feeling good. And then I just started to feel awful. And just my brain wouldn't focus and nausea. And I didn't even try to eat anything because I knew I just had to sleep off the medication. So at that point, I just went to bed. I took a magazine and I didn't even open it. Fell asleep 2-3 hours. When I woke up, I felt great. And that's when we went to the Indian buffet. I guess it's a tradition now. And, you know, just had a normal rest of the day, a little tired, took it easy, but, you know, pretty normal. Ate a normal dinner. I think I even cooked dinner. So really that nap is key, and there would be no way to work that day. But, you know, last time I went back to work the next day and I was a little tired, but I was fine. But I will say that there is a recovery, you know, for a week to 2 weeks. I just felt, almost like I was getting sick or recovering from being sick, and I wasn't sick, but just, you know, that low energy feeling. So obviously, you know, it's a pretty, there's not like a large part of your body that's affected. It's a needle that goes through your vaginal wall to the ovary. So just very small, incision, if you even could consider it an incision. But, you know, that's deep inside, kind of tender part of your body. And I think it is like, you know, a major healing that your body has to do. So yeah, so, you know, a week or two afterwards, I'd say to be gentle with yourself and, you know, don't take on anything too demanding at work. Definitely go to bed early if you can. And, you know, take some time off. I took a week off from strenuous exercise. So I was doing yoga. Last time I was doing dance workouts afterwards, but I remember feeling like I pushed it a little too fast. So did really gentle exercise for the rest of the week after that. And let's see, what else did I want to tell you guys? Oh yeah, I had a lot of fat cravings, like fatty food in the week after. I think it was because of the healing that I mentioned. And then it takes about 2 weeks, or it did for me. It took about 2 weeks. It varies from person to person for how long it takes to get your period afterwards. But it's not exactly when it would normally come. Although for me it was pretty close because I took the meds for 14 days, then another 14 days until it came. So the egg retrieval is supposed to be like about when you normally would ovulate, but it varies, you know, from what would naturally happen. So my doctor said that like it could be anytime you could get your period, like anytime from the next day to a month later. So I understand there's a lot of variation. So then once your procedure is over, that's when you start to get your updates on your embryos. So my husband had done his thing at the clinic with his specimen, and they fertilized them. So we did what's called ICSI or ICSI. They inject the sperm right into the egg. They pick little high-quality fast swimmers and give them the extra advantage. So out of our 6 eggs, only 3 fertilized. So they really don't know why. The eggs looked like they were mature and good quality. So, you know, we were a little disappointed with that, especially because last time they already had told us, you got 3, but only 2 are mature, and both of them fertilized. So, I don't know. It's just really unpredictable. Maybe my body really doesn't like making a lot of good quality eggs in 1 month. I don't know. So we got 3. So that's the good news. And then, so that was, you know, I think it's the next day. So Sunday we found out how many fertilized. And then Monday they were still growing well. And because we only had 3, we were told they were going to be frozen again on day 3, which would be Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. But on Tuesday, the doctor called me and she said, you know, our embryologist feels that these embryos are looking so good. They're of extraordinarily good quality. They look strong, and he recommends, or he not recommends, but he said, if you grow them out, we think you'll get at least 1 blastocyst. So what that means is normally, so last time our embryos were frozen on day 3. And with day 3 embryos, if you transfer 2 at once, you then only have a 25% chance of successful pregnancy. So, you know, 1 baby or twins, but there's only 25% chance that you will get a live birth out of that with the day 3 embryos. Now, with embryos that grow out to day 5, they're called blastocysts at that stage, and they have more than 100 cells, and the chances are more like 60 to 75% chance of live birth. So it's a lot better. So we decided to take our chances, and she called me at 11 and we had to make a decision by noon. So it was a real nail biter, but I also kind of just went with my gut. It kind of felt like we wanted to try something a little different, and it feels a little like covering all your bases, like let's not do the exact same thing we did last time. And just the 60 to 75% figure was really seductive. So we said go for it. So then they don't call you on day 4. You just have to wait till day 5, and at that point you're on the edge of your seat, completely waiting for that phone call. But so on day 5, we had 1 blastocyst, and then on day 6, so day 5 we had one it looked like was not growing well, and then the third out of the 3 was somewhere in between, where they thought if they gave it 1 more day, that would grow into a blastocyst. So, and that is what happened. On day 6, they called to say we have another blastocyst. So we have 2, 1 is day 5 and 1 is day 6. And then we have our 2 day 3 embryos frozen from the prior round. So that's pretty exciting, but again, it feels almost like a lot of pressure, like, oh, we're so lucky to get this, now I don't want to mess it up. So, I'll keep you posted as we get ready to transfer, if and when that happens, and I'll probably do an interim update just about the stuff leading up to that and our visit with the perinatal specialist that we have to see because of my kidney issues. Just looking at my blog real quick to see if there's anything else that I want to tell you before I sign off. No, just encouraging you to share, and, in closing, I feel so fortunate that this is even an option for us financially, and that, the technology and the science even exists, because, like 40, 50 years ago, this wouldn't have been possible for us. So I'm just so grateful, and we're really, really excited to meet those little babies or to grow our family a different way if it turns out that this isn't the path for us, and that, in that case, it could be adoption. And that's okay with us too. We have a long road before we get there, and a lot would have to happen, but we know, we have faith that we have babies out there waiting for us. Exactly where they are, I don't know yet, but I guess that's part of the beauty of life, is just watching that path unfold and lead us to them. So thanks for listening if you're still with me, and if you have any questions, please reach out to me by email. I really obviously don't mind talking about this because it was so hard for me to find stories where people would just frankly talk about all the details, and kind of not just the clinical details, but what it really felt like and what the experience was like. So, if you have a story that's similar, we have anything in common, I would love to hear from you and hear your story and compare notes a little bit if you're open to that. Thanks again. Thanks for your support. Talk to you soon. Take care.